Fantasy Football Junkies. You are tuned in to the #1 source for fantasy prognostication. It's Testosterone Fantasy Sports with your hosts, Jeff and Jesse. So listen up. Here's your chance to gain the edge over the competition and dominate your fantasy football league. Every week we break down all of the matchups and tell you who to play as well as who should ride the pine. This is the joint that every fantasy junkie needs, so check it out!
What is up, fantasy football junkies and football freaks all around the land? Jeff and Jesse in the house doing this thing we call Testosterone Fantasy Sports. Jeff, it's week number 8, and we're doing the show just like we always do.
I know. I can't believe how fast the season's going. Week 8 already here. We're looking at the back stretch of the fantasy football regular season.
Yep.
Pretty much every league. We've got till week 13, everybody, so you want to get your fantasy lineups locked and loaded and ready for your playoff push. Hope your season's going well. It goes well for some, in the middle for some, and it goes down for some people too. But it is fantasy football. We love it because of what it is, and we got a great show planned for you this weekend. As always, we're going to go through all the matchups. We got a little bit of fun too. It's rivalry weekend here at Testosterone Sports. Come on to testosteronesports.com. The proverbial poo is going to be flying like crazy around on the web, and we're going to get it started. Jesse, you and I tee it off against each other in 2 leagues, my friend.
That's right. I mean, when you play in as many leagues as Jeff and I play in, it's one of these things where almost on a weekly basis, or at least every other week, I'm looking across the computer screen at Jeff in one of these leagues. Typically, we played in a league last week. I don't need to really say that. It went a little well for me. I had both of the Titans backs in my starting lineup, as well as Adrian in that league. Scored the highest points in the league that Zach commissions. You scored the second highest points in the league, and I was able to narrowly escape with a victory.
And Jesse, I'll tell you what, I don't want to interrupt.
But this week we play each other twice.
Right. Well, what you just brought up is an interesting fantasy factor there. I scored one of the highest point totals in the league, one of the highest for my season, yet you popped for the league's highest
to date.
To date, right. And so, that tends to happen in fantasy football. So I'll tell you, I'm not hanging my head. Football is the way football is. Anybody can win in any given week. So as my players, Brandon Jacobs and Peyton Manning are coming off the field, I'm telling them, keep your head up, guys.
Yep.
You played real well, and we just didn't have it this week.
Absolutely.
So
and
congratulations to you, Jesse.
Along those same lines, fantasy junkies can jump onto my writers page after the show at testosteronesports.com. I've got this new column up there, a new piece up there called Tough Luck, where I kind of outline how tough my luck has been so far this season in Testosterone's Ultimate Fantasy Football League. Jeff, 2 times through the first 7 weeks, I played the league's highest scorer. 2 other times I played the league's second highest scorer, and a couple times I escaped with some very, very close losses. So fantasy junkies out there understand you're going to catch some grizzle bad luck from time to time. It's just a part of the game. But this week, as you said, rivalry week, we play each other not only in the tough league, where it's a must-win game for you. Really, I'm kind of struggling in the standings, but we also play each other in the Insanity League, a league we got in with a bunch of guys from fanball.com, Paul Charchian included, and both of our teams are doing really well. My team's tied for first place in the entire league. I believe we have a 7-3 record, and you're just 1 game behind.
Yeah.
So tight matchup in both
it's
those leagues.
It's going to be fun, I'll tell you.
In 1 game, I have Adrian, and 1 game, you have Adrian.
I know, and he's on bye.
Right.
And you know what else is funny is you were able to beat me last week because you played the Titans backs against Kansas City.
Right.
That was in the 1 league. Now in both these leagues, I'm doing the same thing to you. I'm turning Thomas Jones on you. He plays against the lowly Chiefs as well. Got him going in 2 leagues against you, man.
Ooh,
so
yeah, that's
going to be a lot of fun.
That's a good matchup.
Wait.
So absolutely. Well, let's start out with that matchup as we break down all the matchups on a weekly basis here. Jeff has mentioned the Chiefs traveling to play the Jets, but the Chiefs, Jeff, a team that's in pretty much total disarray. This week, Larry Johnson coming out talking about how disgusted he is by this recent report that he took a drink at a nightclub and spit it on a woman. And he didn't play last week because he violated team rules, and now this week he's basically taken himself out of action, and Herman Edwards has also stepped in to say, Larry, you're right, you're not playing.
Right.
I'm wondering how long this suspension could potentially be, and in the meantime, they've also put their number 1 and number 2 quarterbacks on IR. So the Chiefs in free fall mode.
Yeah, it's unraveling like crazy for the Chiefs right now. Without Brody Croyle or Damon Heward, they have Yancey Thigpen. Tyler Thigpen under center, and we got a chance to see him a little bit in Chiefs camp. And what was kind of funny, like the running joke there, was that some people in the front office thought that Tyler Thigpen was the man of the future there.
Right.
And that kind of just goes to show about what the mindset is in that town and how it's not winning football right now.
Right. So the future is now.
Dwayne Bowe and Tony Gonzalez are going to be having Thigpen chucking them the ball. I think that's a pretty poor option for them. Ingle Martin is the backup right now.
They also brought in Quinn Gray.
And I wouldn't be surprised that's a pretty good move in my opinion, to bring in Quinn Gray. At least he's younger. But it's really going to be tough for them. I don't think you can play any of their players at all here in this game.
Right.
Although the Jets have kind of a bend but don't break defense, you could maybe chuck Colby Smith or Jamal Charles out there.
Dicey.
It's going to be tough either way. So try to avoid all your Chiefs.
And then as far as the Jets go, some news kind of surfacing this week. I don't know if you've heard this or not about Brett Favre's arm and his elbow. People are worried that his mechanics last week were off, and there's starting to be some speculation that Brett might not be 100% right now. Neither of his wide receivers at this point this week, Jericho Cotchery or Lavernius Coles, both have been reserved in practice. Although all 3 of these guys are supposed to play, I'm kind of thinking that the Jets will play it conservative here, just run Thomas Jones into the ground. I think Jones is a fantastic fantasy player.
He should have a nice game. The Chiefs are getting torched on the ground pretty much by everybody. Last week we saw over 300 yards by the Titans backfield. The Jets aren't near as good of a running team, but it is only Jones back there, so he should be good for at least 1 and maybe 2 touchdowns in this game.
Yeah,
like you, Jesse, I think that you got to watch their passing game right now and see what happens.
The next matchup, Oakland traveling to Baltimore to face a feisty Ravens team that I continually overlook on a weekly basis. Yet they come out, and last week Willis McGahee really got his stride going, had over 100 yards and a touchdown. In one league that we play in, Jeff, fantasy owners dropped Willis McGahee during the middle of the week last week, right before his first real good game of the I'm wanting to know, playing against Oakland, do you think Willis can continue the trend with his first real good game of the season?
I really like him a lot at home, way more than on the road. And Oakland's got a fairly decent defense, but they're really not anywhere where they need to be yet. So I do think you can start Willis McGahee here, especially during the bye weeks. He makes a good play. They don't have much else going passing-wise.
Nope.
And I just think because of how good their defense is, that's their best play. But you can't start any Raiders because of that either.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we saw Justin Fargas get a lot of the carries last week. I think that is a trend that you're going to see. Their new head coach, Tom Cable, has come in. He is dedicated to Fargas. That's one thing that I was kind of wondering about. Would we see a big spike in McFadden's opportunities? But last week, Fargas had way more carries than McFadden. Although Baltimore's D is formidable against the run, I think you bench Fargas here. You definitely bench McFadden. Really want to reserve all of these Oakland Raiders. Even though we did see a touchdown catch from Javon Walker last week.
I know, all of a sudden.
I don't think that's a trend.
Yeah, well, I will give you some personal advice, Jesse, and I think you should play Justin Fargas here on rivalry weekend against me in the tough league. I think that would be wise.
Okay, the next matchup, Tampa Bay traveling down to Dallas, where the Cowboys, Jeff, completely falling apart at the seams. Losers of, I believe, 3 of their last 4 games, not really playing at a high level. We find out this week that Tony Romo will not play again this week or next week, probably returning after the bye. But Jeff, the wheels are starting to come off in Big D, and Tampa playing really solid ball, surprisingly.
Yeah, well, for Dallas coming out as hot as they were, their stock's fallen faster than AIG right now. It's been crazy to see what's happened with the Romo injury. Now he's coming out and finally saying, I'm not going to be able to play till after the bye week. I think he kind of wanted to play against the Giants in next week's matchup. So I just don't think that they're going to be nearly as good at moving the ball. Brad Johnson looked like he had a pretty weak arm in their last game.
Absolutely.
They were able to muster only 7 points against a very poor defense at St. Louis. And I just think that things are going to continue to turn bad for them. It seems like a low-scoring game because it is 2 playoff teams And I don't know if Tampa has got the stones to win that game, because eventually good teams win in the NFL, even if they don't have their top quarterback. So I look at Dallas as being like the sneaky win here.
It's a really interesting development to me to watch the Cowboys and how the wheels have fallen off so quickly. And we're seeing across the NFL landscape, especially what's going on in St. Louis with the firing of their head coach, and they promote Jim Haslett, who I believe was their defensive coordinator. Now they make him the head coach. All of a sudden the team is playing much better and winning back-to-back games. It almost makes me wonder here if Wade Phillips falters a little bit and this team loses another game or two. Let's not forget Jason Garrett, their offensive coordinator, is by far and away the highest paid coordinator in the game. And I know that this past week, Jerry Jones has come out and endorsed his head coach, saying unequivocally, we will not be making a move at the coaching position. But let's not forget, Jeff, just a couple weeks ago, he said they would not make a move for a wide receiver, and they ended up with Roy Williams. So I'm wondering if the Cowboys stumble a couple more times, if Jason Garrett might be promoted to that head spot.
I mean, it seems like it'd be a little bit crazy for them to make a coaching move. For a team that's got Super Bowl aspirations, I don't think it makes sense for team cohesion to get rid of Phillips. Besides, who's going to then run your defense? Because he's pretty much their defensive coordinator.
Well, he's just taken the reins back this week to call the defensive play calls. So
that's a pretty wise move.
He's scrambling a little bit right now.
Because their defense hasn't been really good so far.
Their defense has been pretty bad, and their secondary is decimated.
Yeah, and it's decimated by injury, although when they're healthy, they're probably the best unit in the game.
Right.
So, it's been an interesting thing to watch down in Dallas. They're not doing anything at all offensively or defensively. So for a team that looks as good as they do on paper, they should be pretty much either undefeated or with just one loss.
Right.
And they've lost some tough ones to Philadelphia and Washington.
Right.
They almost lost to Cincinnati, and they just lost to the Rams. So something's going on. I think that they probably also need to get T.O. Horizontal next to a psychologist, a psychiatrist, somebody who can prescribe him something to take the edge off.
I like Jeff Garcia in this game. He's a sneaky play here. Mark Bulger connected on a couple touchdown passes last week. Jeff Garcia playing at a really high level, had 215 and 220 plus yards in the first half last week. I think Jeff Garcia could post some solid numbers here. He's a decent bye week fill-in. Their running game should be okay against Dallas. Steven Jackson went off last week, so you could start Ernest Graham here. You could think about starting Warwick Dunn, but tough to say.
Kablam!
What was that?
Start Antonio Bryant. He's the bomb.
There you go. He blew up last week, so this week he should be good for at least 2 catches. Seattle at San Francisco in the final matchup of the first segment here, Jeff. Seattle, it looks like they're going to be without their starting quarterback, Matt Hasselbeck, yet again. And the 49ers, without their head coach, another head coach fired in the middle of the season. What do you make of these two teams? They're both really crappy.
Well, the other team in this division that fired their head coach was the Rams. They fired Scott Linehan, and then they started winning all of a sudden for Jim Haslett. I think that something similar could happen here in San Francisco. I love Mike Singletary. He was one of my favorite players as I was growing up. Locked down that middle linebacker spot for the Bears.
Yeah, with the eyes.
With the eyes. And I just think he's going to be a fiery kind of personality who can get the guys going. I think they're going to play for him. I really think that Frank Gore is going to step up his game a little bit. Jesse, I like the Niners to win this, one of the ugliest matchups in the game. And it does kind of suck that it's the Sunday nighter. I wish that, they had moved that part of the schedule.
Is it the Sunday nighter? I thought they canceled the Sunday nighter during the baseball World Series.
Well, maybe that's it. I'm not 100% certain.
I think it is.
That.
I think it's Sunday afternoon.
I sure hope so, because I don't want to spend my Sunday evening watching them two games.
I mean, if it is the Sunday nighter, I'll go mow my lawn.
I know, right?
I'll find something else to do. Well, we thank you for tuning in this week. We love to do this show. It's something that we pride ourselves on. We put it out there on the internet every single week. You can see it at testosteronesports.com. We also air every single week here on Channel 6 MCN across the entire Metro network, and we've got a great show for you here. We've got some friends in the house. Our good friend Eric Nelson from WCCO standing on to the sidelines. He'll be hopping on the set here with us in just a couple minutes. And I believe we might even have Zach and possibly even a Yeasty sighting a little bit later on the show. So don't go anywhere. We're going to continue to break down all the matchups, helping you dominate in your fantasy football league. Jeff and Jesse be back right after this. want to win,
you must tune in
to Testosterone Fantasy Sports.